Dopamine isn't about pleasure, it's about anticipation. That's the first thing you need to understand. If you want to get inside a woman's head and stay there, most men make the mistake of thinking they need to constantly please her, impress her, or drown her in affection. But the men who actually get her addicted are the ones who know how to create uncertainty. Why? Because the brain doesn't release dopamine when something good happens. It releases dopamine when something might happen. The unknown is more intoxicating than any gift, message, or gesture. So the more unpredictable you are, the more she can't pin you down, the more addicted she becomes. Her mind starts running stories, obsessing, analyzing, not because you're distant, but because you're interesting. You're a mystery, and that's where the game begins. Not in her heart, but in her brain chemistry. Silence is a drug, and when used strategically, it's one of the most powerful dopamine triggers there is. When you go silent, not as a punishment, not as a game, but from genuine self-focus, it triggers a loop in her mind. Did I do something wrong? Is he upset? Why hasn't he reached out? That mental loop is dopamine on repeat. Every time she checks her phone, every time she opens Instagram, hoping to see you viewed her story, her brain lights up. Not because she misses you romantically, but because you've become a pattern she can't solve. That's the secret. Don't be a problem she solves. Be a question she can't stop asking. You create that by knowing when to pull back. Not with bitterness, but with power. Not to manipulate, but to detach. Silence done right doesn't create distance, it creates obsession. The way you touch her matters less than when you touch her, and even more, how unexpectedly you do it. A hand on her lower back when guiding her through a crowd, a brush of her thigh under the table, a pause just before a kiss, just before your hand slips around her neck. That pause is what spikes her dopamine. Because the delay between anticipation and fulfillment is the drug. When you move with intention, when your touch is slow, deliberate, restrained, her brain goes wild. Not because of the physical sensation, but because of the suspense, the tease, the way you make her wait. Not in a cruel way, but in a masculine way. You're not rushing to please her. You're letting the moment unfold like a storm. That's what she remembers. That's what she craves later in bed, in silence, in moments when you're not even there. The replay value is everything, and that's what dopamine feeds on, the memory loop. Women don't get addicted to men who make them feel comfortable. They get addicted to men who make them feel alive. And what makes her feel alive? It's not gifts, it's not texts, it's not validation, it's contrast. One moment you're making her laugh, the next, your energy shifts, silent, focused, untouchable. You're hot then cold, not to be toxic, but because you are a full spectrum man. You contain multitudes. She never knows which side of you she'll get. And that unpredictability sends her dopamine levels through the roof. Her emotions become a roller coaster. And whether she admits it or not, women love emotional turbulence when it's coming from a man who's centered in himself. The highs and lows don't scare her. They addict her because you've become an experience, not a personality. And experiences leave impressions that last far beyond the moment, create moments that can't be replicated. That's how you burn into her dopamine receptors. A date isn't just dinner, it's a vibe, a tone, a memory that lingers. Sit her on a rooftop with a view. Say nothing for 5 minutes. Let the silence do the work. Put your phone away. Stare into her soul without flinching. Most men fill the silence. You own it. You make her feel like the world is quieter when she's with you. That sense of presence, of escape from chaos is rare. And the rarer something feels, the more dopamine her brain releases. Why? Because her biology thinks she stumbled on gold. And scarcity equals value. So stop trying to wow her. Start creating energy shifts. Moments where she feels something new. Moments where time slows down. That's what addicts her. Not you as a person, but how she feels around you. That's what she'll keep chasing. A woman's dopamine addiction begins the moment she can't label you. Once she figures you out, she relaxes, and with that relaxation comes the inevitable drop in interest. But when your presence feels like a riddle, when your values seem layered, when your past seems like a story she can't fully read, she becomes consumed, not by fear, but by fascination. This isn't about playing hard to get, it's about being deep, being a man whose truth can't be fully known in a few dates. When you say something philosophical out of nowhere, when you show emotional control where most men would explode, when you laugh at something dark and beautiful in the same breath, her brain lights up. Why? Because now she wants more data, and that want becomes need. That's dopamine. It's not logical, it's chemical, and the less she can define you, the more her system craves to understand you. Disappearing after an emotional high is one of the most powerful dopamine spikes a man can create, but it must be done with mastery. It's not ghosting, it's not punishment, it's the art of the fade. You give her an incredible night connection, eye contact, presence, and then you fall back into your world. No explanation, no long text about how you feel, just silence, and that silence acts like a cliffhanger. Her brain starts hunting for closure. It replays the night, it loops the final words, it wonders where you went. That loop is dopamine on overdrive. And here's the wild part, she doesn't need a response to feel this addiction. She just needs the contrast, from high to stillness, from attention to absence. Most men mess this up by chasing right after. But you understand that space is power, and power, when used correctly, becomes unforgettable. Voice matters. The way you speak can spike dopamine faster than what you say. Slow, calm, controlled. Like every word has weight. That kind of voice vibrates differently in a woman's mind, especially when the world around her is loud and chaotic. When you lower your voice, not out of weakness, but out of certainty, it forces her to lean in. It forces her brain to focus, and that laser focus is a dopamine trigger. She starts connecting your voice with emotional intensity, with authority, with intimacy. So even when you're gone, a song that matches your tone brings you back to her mind. A memory reactivates the desire. This is why seductive men don't talk fast. They don't fill the room with words. They make silence seductive, and every sentence, a slow hit of psychological tension. One she'll crave again and again. Scarcity creates obsession, not just with time or communication, but with access to your emotional world. When you don't open up quickly, when you don't reveal your entire history in one sitting, when you show restraint in sharing your feelings, she starts digging. Not because she doubts you, but because her mind needs to find the missing pieces. And every time you hold back just enough, her dopamine system gets activated. It starts attaching value to every new detail you share. Every insight becomes a win. Every confession feels like gold. Most men rush to tell everything, thinking vulnerability equals connection. But the truth is, earned vulnerability is what creates real addiction. When you open up slowly, on your terms, with timing and presence, it makes her feel like she's peeling back the layers of something real, and that process alone keeps her locked in. Touch her mind before you touch her body. That's where most men lose the game. Physical pleasure is short-lived, but mental arousal creates endless psychological loops. Ask her questions no one else asks. Make her think about parts of herself she's ignored. Tell her how her silence is louder than most people's noise. These kinds of statements hit differently. They activate emotional memories. They make her feel seen. And when a woman feels seen, her dopamine levels skyrocket. Why? Because most of her world feels invisible. Filters, texts, surface-level compliments. But when you enter her life as a mirror, one that reflects her depth, her contradiction, her wildness, she can't let you go. You've given her what no one else has, awareness. And awareness is the most addictive substance on earth. It doesn't fade, it lingers. And with every thought of you, she hits another dopamine spike. Be a man of ritual, not routine. There's a difference. Routine is mechanical, anyone can do it. Ritual is symbolic, intentional, infused with meaning. When you take her somewhere new, always order the same cocktail first. When you see her, greet her the same way, but only you do it like that. When you say goodbye, whisper something only the two of you understand. These little behaviors, if done not out of desperation but presence, create anchors in her emotional memory. Every time it happens, her brain hits that same spike, the same high, because dopamine isn't just about novelty, it's also about emotional patterns that feel personal. When you become a man of ritual, you brand yourself onto her nervous system, not in a toxic way, in a sacred way. You become the man who gave meaning to ordinary moments, and that she can't stop chasing. Change your energy, not your words. Women are hypersensitive to the feel behind what you say. You can speak the truth, but if your energy is anxious or needy, her body rejects it. If you say nothing but your energy is grounded, centered, and slightly untouchable, her body leans in. Dopamine is tied to emotional contrast. So when you carry an unpredictable vibe, when you walk in some nights laughing and other nights stone silent, her nervous system lights up. She starts adapting, reacting, craving emotional homeostasis, and the only place she finds that is in you. Not because you're dramatic, but because you're alive. You feel real, you feel unfiltered. And in a world of scripted interactions, that raw presence spikes dopamine like crazy. The less explainable you are, the more addictive you become. Disrupt her patterns. Interrupt the expected. Send a message at 6 a.m. that says nothing but today feels dangerous. Don't talk to me unless you're ready. Or cancel a dinner she thought was scheduled. Not out of disrespect, but with a voice note that says, tonight I need solitude, but I'm taking you somewhere better soon. That shock to her expectation doesn't push her away. It wakes her up. It breaks the monotony. It shows her you're not trying to perform. You're living. And when you live from your center, it shakes her dopamine system like thunder. Most men seek approval. You seek alignment. That's what makes her obsessed. Because suddenly, you don't feel like a man trying to get her. You feel like a man she has to keep up with. And chasing that kind of man, it becomes a reflex. She can't not do it. Let her feel your absence as deeply as she feels your presence. That means when you're with her fully. No phone, no distractions, eye contact that makes her forget what she was saying, touch that says more than words ever could. But when you're gone, you're gone. No breadcrumbs, no mixed signals, no checking in to soothe your own insecurity. You vanish, not to play games, but because you have a life, and that sharp contrast creates emotional whiplash in her system. She goes from intensity to emptiness, and the brain hates emptiness, so it starts filling in the gaps. What is he doing? Why hasn't he texted? Did I do something wrong? That gap becomes her mental obsession. An obsession is built on emotional starvation. You gave her the meal, then took away the table. That's how addiction begins. Not with too much attention, but with just enough to make her hunger for more. Be the man she can't explain to her friends. Most women can summarize every guy they've dated. He's sweet, he's clingy, he's ambitious. But when she says, I don't know what it is about him, I just can't stop thinking about him, that's dopamine hijacking her logic. You created a psychological footprint that doesn't fit a box, that makes her defend you, that makes her come back even after she said she wouldn't. And how do you become that man? By being multi-dimensional. You're grounded but playful, deep but dangerous, warm but never passive. You let her in but not all the way. You're soft when she's broken, but you never drop your standards. That blend of intensity and calm, of intimacy and distance, of focus and chaos, it makes you unforgettable. And when her brain can't solve you, it attaches to you. Because in the end, addiction is born when she no longer feels in control of how you make her feel. Make her feel like the center of the universe for a moment, then return to your own. That brief moment where your eyes linger on hers longer than usual, when you lean in and whisper something, just for her ears, when the entire room fades and only she exists, those seconds hit her brain like lightning. Its intensity, its singularity, it's the feeling of being chosen, and then just as suddenly you shift, you refocus, you become silent, you return to your world, your mission, your solitude. That switch is what triggers the dopamine spiral. She doesn't just want to feel special, she wants to feel chosen again, and again, and again. That unpredictability, that magnetic push-pull, it imprints on her like a signature, and she doesn't even realize she's chasing the high of that one moment, replaying it, trying to recreate it, and that's the loop that binds her to you. Use storytelling as seduction. Most men talk in facts, but you speak in scenes, in emotions, in metaphors that pull her into your mind. When you talk about your past, don't just say, I used to live in the city. Say, there was a time the city swallowed me whole, and I loved every second of it. When you talk about a lesson, don't explain it, paint it. Turn your words into a landscape. Let her walk inside your memories. This isn't just about impressing her, it's about activating her imagination. And once you do that, once she's mentally picturing your world, you're no longer just a man to her, you're a story. And women don't chase men, they chase stories, characters, narratives that make them feel something. The more she imagines you, the more dopamine she produces, because imagination is anticipation, and anticipation is the chemical that makes her unable to forget you. Let her chase your mind before she ever touches your body. Flirt with ideas, tease with philosophy, challenge her beliefs without ever raising your voice. Make her feel like she's entering intellectual territory she's never explored. This is rare. Most men talk about what they want from women. Few men make women want their mind. When she finds herself thinking about something you said 3 days ago, when she starts questioning things you made her feel in a sentence or two, that's when she's no longer thinking about other men. You've hijacked her intellectual curiosity. And when a woman is mentally locked in, her body follows. That's when eye contact lingers. That's when her texts shift. That's when she starts doing the chasing. Because you didn't seduce her with compliments or attention, you seduced her with elevation, and that's the rarest currency of all, presence, not performance. That's what changes everything. When she's talking, don't plan your response. Don't try to seem cool. Just be there. Hear her with your chest, not just your ears. Let your energy say, you're safe to be exactly who you are right now. And in that moment, her defenses collapse. Because most men are too busy trying to win her. You're just witnessing her, holding space. This makes her feel exposed and alive at the same time. Her nervous system relaxes, but her mind lights up. Who is this man, she thinks. Why does he make me feel like this? That feeling becomes the addiction. Not because you gave her butterflies, but because you gave her relief. In a world that asks her to perform every day, you became the place where she could breathe. And women will do anything to stay close to that. Always leave her wondering. Never explain everything. Never text too much. Never be overly available. Be warm, but not predictable. Be bold, but not eager. Show her parts of yourself, but not all at once. Because the truth is, mystery is the engine of dopamine. Once she knows everything, the brain relaxes, but when you leave space for imagination, the brain goes crazy. It fills in the gaps. It starts idealizing, romanticizing, guessing. That's when she starts dreaming of you. Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. When you walk away from the date and leave her with silence, when you don't reply instantly, when you post something cryptic and then disappear, you trigger that loop. And suddenly, she's thinking about you more than the man who gives her the world, because you gave her curiosity. And curiosity, when wrapped in masculine energy, becomes obsession. Harness the emotional roller coaster, but use it with mastery. Too much calm and you become forgettable. Too much chaos and you become toxic. The real art is in controlled emotional contrast. Moments where you make her laugh uncontrollably, followed by moments of intense silence, where your eyes lock and she swears she can feel your soul. A spontaneous night out, then a weekend of no contact, a random compliment whispered in public, then nothing at all the next day. These controlled fluctuations are not manipulation, they're the reality of a powerful man with a dynamic emotional world, and women crave this more than anything. They want to feel, and the sharper those contrasts, the higher the dopamine spikes. She won't even realize it's happening. She'll just say, I don't know why, but I think about you constantly. And that's how you win, not with effort, with presence, mystery, and emotional gravity. A woman's mind never forgets the man who makes her question herself. Not in a way that tears her down, but in a way that awakens her. When you challenge her to level up, when you catch her slipping into emotional patterns she's used to manipulating others with, when you say, I see what you're doing, and I'm not falling for it, something shifts. She doesn't feel judged, she feels seen. And that kind of awareness, it's rare. That confrontation spikes adrenaline first, but then it turns into dopamine. She starts chasing your approval. She wants to feel that mirror again. She wants to know what you think, because it matters. Not because you validated her, but because you held her to a higher standard. Most men praise her, you purify her, and for a woman drowning in her own illusions, that feeling becomes a drug. You didn't just flirt, you evolved her. Live like your life is the movie she wants to watch. Women fall hardest, not for the man who needs her, but for the man who fascinates her. When you wake up early and go for a run in the rain, when you spend 3 hours reading at a rooftop cafe while the world rushes by, when you take road trips alone, just because your soul craved movement, those things tell her something. They tell her you're free, that you are your own center of gravity, that your life is already rich, already cinematic, already full, and that kind of life, it pulls women in like gravity. They want to be part of it, not to save you, not to fix you, but to experience that aliveness beside you. And when you let her watch, even just for a moment, her brain lights up, because being in your world feels like being in a dream, and dreams are addictive. Break patterns she's never had broken before. If she's used to men texting every morning, don't. If she's used to being flattered, challenge her. If she's used to men being emotionally available too soon, be unavailable in a powerful, grounded way. This shocks her system. It confuses her expectations, and confusion leads to obsession. Why? Because her brain wants resolution. It wants to know what's going on with this guy. That loop creates constant stimulation. And with each new day, if you remain unpredictable, but still consistent in your masculine essence, her interest deepens. Not because you're a player, but because you refuse to be another episode in her dating show. You're not reacting, you're sculpting the experience. And when she senses that she's being led, When she feels that you're creating something deliberate, she follows, not out of logic, out of pure unfiltered need to experience more of what you're giving her. And finally, don't try to be unforgettable, be unreplaceable. That means being the man whose presence gave her something no one else ever has, not just physical excitement, not just emotional intensity, but transformation. You didn't just spike her dopamine, you woke her up. You reminded her what real masculinity feels like. You showed her that love doesn't have to be about control or performance. It can be about depth, silence, raw magnetism. And when she walks away, if she ever does, she'll try to replicate that with someone else, but it won't work, because you were never trying to make her addicted. You were being you, and you became the addiction. That's the secret. That's the art. That's the reason women chase, obsess, and lose sleep over a man they barely understand, but deeply, achingly feel every time they close their eyes. You didn't give her you gave her a glimpse of something she'll never get again.